Hello everyone, myself Dr. Radhika Mehta, Associate Professor from Jagannath University, Jaipur. Let's start the new topic from the subject online journalism. So today we'll be understanding ethical guidelines for online journalism. As a general principle, online journalism must respect all professional ethics and core values of journalism, irrespective of the forum or format it uses. In particular, information published by online media must be accurate and fact-based, verified and published without sensationalism, published without intent to do harm to others, inclusive of all relevant points of view and impartial, transparent in origin of content and methods of journalism used. Online journalists and media should always be aware that the systematic republication of the third party content without verifying its veracity may seriously undermine the integrity and credibility of online media and journalism. In fact, can lead to infringements of intellectual property rights. The specifics and special sensitivities of online publication and use of the internet and technological tools such as mobile devices requires online media and journalists to take into account the following norms and guidelines. First, principles related to the specifics of online journalism. Journalists and media should always respect the dignity, reputation, and privacy of individuals. This cardinal principle assumes added importance in online publications due to serious harm that the latter may cause to the legitimate interests of third parties. The editors or operators of websites should not publish any material online, written or visual, that incites hatred or violence, or causes direct or indirect discrimination on the basis of gender, age, marital status, language, physical or mental disabilities, sexual orientation, political conviction, religion, or ethnic or social status. Forums dedicated primarily to children and young adults should be monitored with special care and attention, including for the purpose of preventing cyberbullying and the publication of malicious content with intention to do harm to others. There should be a clear distinction between editorial content and forums reserved for user-generated content. Editors should be aware that they are ethically and potentially also legally liable for content generated by third parties published on their website. Care should be exercised to ensure that hyperlinks used in website content do not direct users to other sites that contain deliberately harmful and false information or may lead to the code of ethics. Next, user-generated content. Editors or website operators should monitor their websites and take measures to prevent or stop publication of content that is unlawful or violates human dignity or privacy or constitutes hate speech. Where possible, such monitoring should be prior to publication. Hate speech is understood as speech intended to generate intense hatred or is incitement to actual violence or discrimination against individuals or groups, especially minorities of all kinds. Staff responsible for moderation of comments should be properly trained in the basics of relevant national legislation and international standards on protection of vulnerable groups. Editors and website operators should adopt and prominently publish on their websites their third-party content management policies and the rules that users must follow to add comments or other content to their pages. These rules should clearly define permissible third-party content, treatment of anonymous comments and complaints, notifications procedures for violation of website policies or the law. Content management policies should clearly indicate what kind of monitoring of user generated content the website applies. The editors or operators should use whenever possible available filters or other technologies to prevent the publication of insulting language or other easily identifiable and inappropriate content. Next, editors or website operators should make available to users a simple mechanism to report third-party content that users consider unlawful or in violation of website policies. Next, with respect to comments that constitute hate speech, endanger the safety or physical integrity of individuals or may cause other serious violations of human rights, editors and website operators must make use of effective mechanisms to identify and disable such contents as expediently as possible. Next, editors and website operators shall act immediately to investigate and remove unacceptable content as soon as they become aware of it. They shall act on their own violation even in the absence of complaint by affected persons or other parties and shall respond immediately upon receipt of a legitimate complaint. Editors and operators should have in place special policies and mechanisms for the identification and expeditious takedown of sexual content or non-consensual content in the view of their especially serious impact on the privacy and dignity of the affected persons. The above guidelines are also valid to the extent they may be applicable for the media outlets, social media pages taking special account of the potential impact of those publications. In addition, media should be aware of and comply with the policies and mechanisms set up by social networks to prevent or to stop unlawful publications on their respective platforms. Now let's understand the notice and takedown procedures. Editors or website operators should adopt effective mechanisms for reviewing public complaints or report about material that may be unlawful or in violation of website policies. Complaints should receive confirmation that their notices are being considered. Second, as a rule, editors or operators should take action on complaints as soon as possible and no later than within 48 hours. Exceptionally, this timeline may be extended in cases that are especially complex from a legal or ethical perspective. Next, editors may temporarily disable contested content in cases that require further consideration. Whenever possible and provided the relevant third-party content is not manifestly illegal, editors should make efforts to contact the author of such content, inviting them to provide their views on the received complaint. Editors should treat anonymous third-party content with particular care. Anonymity is a right to be extended to people in special circumstances. Children, for instance, or victims of violence or other vulnerable groups. Normally, editors and website operators should expect all contributors to be transparent and to provide legitimate contact point. They may block for a period of time or permanently users who engage in repeated violations of community guidelines or may subject them to pre-publication moderation. Editors may establish rules banning the use of comment space by commercial entities or for lucrative motives, as well as the use of indirect hidden advertising on the same space. Next, on use of third-part content. Personal photographs, videos, or written material published on social media are also considered to be in the public domain, and their use by the mass media exposes them to a potentially wider audience. Media should take into consideration the impact of using such personal material and information, especially in relation to tragic events. Copyright related implications should also be considered. Second, photographs and video taken from social media should be carefully scrutinized and verified to establish their authenticity. The facility of obtaining images from social network or personal pages does not exempt media from their duty of care. The public interest in publication of such information should be weighed against privacy rights and protection of minors. The publication of images on social media should not lead to an assumption of consent of the original source of republication in other platforms or by the mass media. Media should always be alert to the dangers of publishing images showing unlawful or anti-social behavior. Media should exercise caution to ensure that they do not become a vehicle for the promotion or justification of illegality in general and organized crime in particular. Now let's understand the next topic, online archives and republication of third-party content. Online media should, to the fullest extent possible, maintain online archives of their published content. Permanent archive materials contribute to the preservation of the historical record or and should be redacted or taken down only in exceptional circumstances, such as when ordered to do so by a court or when ongoing publication may seriously endanger the well-being of children or the physical and psychological integrity of vulnerable individuals, or if the original publication was inaccurate or suffered from serious ethical lapses. As a rule, every reduction should be accompanied by an explanation on the same page. Editors may opt for anonymization of sources instead of takedown of the relevant content where this is appropriate. Now let's discuss the principles of Code of Ethics on compliance with Copyright Article 15 apply fully on online publications. The repeated republication of content and other material produced by other media without their permission or appropriate attribution is a violation of copyright and considered a serious infringement of journalistic ethics. Furthermore, any quotation of third-party content should clearly indicate the source, author of the material and comply with other requirements of copyright law. Now let's understand freedom of media and press in online journalism. The birth of the online are often dated back to 1976, when the scientists of USA introduced the intra-network facilities for the defense personnel how developed by the American Research Program Agency. The network was called as ARPANET. It is often considered as the predecessor of the online. The ARPANET network, designed for the national defense purpose, evolved into the online within the late 1980s, when the PC scientists introduced facilities which led to the network to return out of the defense service to the general public. The network facilities were confined to us only, to the us only. But the invention of the Earth World Wide Web by the European Research Network within the 1990s led to the online revolution. One reason that the online was adapted so rapidly was that the before adoption of personal computers through which the online was assessed. Many observers consider internet together of the great transformational technologies that originally challenged, then fundamentally changed the way that people learn, create, play, communicate and work. The simplest impact of internet has been on business. The online arrived in India at the primary part of 1990s. But before 1995, internet connections were only available to the non-commercial organizations through a Department of Electronic Education and Research Network scheme. But in 1995, internet connectivity became available to individuals and organizations. Apart from the organizations and offices, the people could flick through the online at cyber cafes, which was started in 1995. Now, web journalism content regulations. The web at the primary stage was used for official and commercial purposes only. But in due course, for some time, the commercial website owners diverted their attention and started sending the knowledge. At first, web browsers started showing some highlights scrolling on the PC screen below the foremost themes. In due course of some time, the instant news were highly appreciated by the users and became very fashionable. Therefore, the PC elites planned to start out full-fledged newspaper portals which addressed news as their primary product. For this purpose, they appointed programmers for sending news items at the internet site, editors to ascertain the contents, reporters for the collection of stories, and other personnel like technical writers, copywriters, and related posts. Thus gave birth to a replacement kind of journalism mentioned because the online journalism. The newspaper arrives one morning, but something is missing. There is no delivery person tossing the folded papers into dimly lighted driveways. No familiar thing. In fact, there is no paper in the smallest amount. This newspaper is electronically digitalized blend of text, graphics, color photos, sounds and full motion video dancing across a book size PC screen, and it's wireless. So you will even take it to the bathroom. The internet is known as the web because the virtual root of internet connection is so complex that it's kind of a spider web with plenty of connections and interconnections. People World Health Organization cannot access TV, radio through the editions of e-newspapers they get updated. With increase in mobile services that provides property of to the web through GPRS, the role of internet journalism has become important. Though the country possesses to beat the barrier exposed by inadequate and poor quality power, high rentals related to broadband services, the affordable computers have supported the dissemination of internet-based news. Foreign majors like Yahoo, Google, and MSN additionally complete the role of anchor. These portals additionally recognized the importance of Hindi and different regional languages. The regional newspapers have additionally started their portals for the users. Aside from the Hindi language newspapers of just about each scheduled language have their online editions. The linguistic purity related to internet journalism remains a debated topic. It ought to be unbroken in mind that news is browsed from a newspaper, detected over radio, and viewed on electronic media. However, with internet journalism, we browse, hear, and take into account news at, at all equivalent time. E-journalism is probably an awfully spectacular medium. If we glance into the contents of these news portals, we will find that the authorities are not so serious about the news items. Some portals like rediff.com and sifi.com are among the few internet sites in India which have some original news contents. But during a number of portals, the primary content is diluted. However, such portals are good within the short run, but are poor players within the top of the day. Websites are assisted by news organizations associated with the print and electronic media. But true websites are peopling that boosts of dedicated teams of reporters and journalists. Now, let's understand the next topic, web journalism, socio-legal responsibilities. The editors and reporters handling web journalism should have some special responsibilities so far because the Indian society cares. This web journalism scenario consists of two kinds of news portal. The first category belongs to the newspaper organizations that have their separate website portals. They have their own reporters, agencies and journalists. Only they hire some technological hands for the portals. The second category, on the other hand, belongs to the folks that have no newspapers but they enjoy this service online only. Within the primary case, the website portals are as responsible because the newspapers. Because the gatekeepers in both of the agencies are same. But within the second case, the journalists need to look out while posting news items and other messages to the web. They need to remember of the legal provisions meant for the journalists. They need to remember of the Copyright Act, Official Secret Act, the PRB Act, defamation, libel, slander and other related press laws. Further, they have to recollect of the cyber law at international and national level. Because the most aim of the website portal is profit making. There are instances of some journalists engage in unethical activities, so on gain fame and money for his or her organization. But it's against the society and also dangerous for the society. Journalists are getting to use the liberty of publication offered by net to victimization any means to collect news. There is an AN pressing would like for the community of internet journalists and internet publications to distance themselves from hot suggests that of stories generations and take step forward towards fixing the body of web journalists that may undertake the responsibility to guide budding fact finding journalists from taking undue risk and motivated comes that may sully the image of internet journalism itself. Now let's understand the concept of media democracy. Media democracy. Media is democracy is a set of ideas advocating reforming the mass media, strengthening public service broadcasting, and developing and participating in alternative media and citizen journalism. The stated purpose for doing so is to create a mass media system that informs and empowers all members of society and enhances democratic values. It is a liberal democratic approach to media studies that advocates the reformation of the mass media with an emphasis on public service broadcasting and audience participation through the use of citizen journalism and alternative media channels. A media democracy focuses on using information technologies to both empower individual citizens and promote democratic ideals through the spread of information. Additionally, the media system itself should be democratic in its own construction, shying away from private ownership or intense regulation. Media democracy entails that media should promote democracy as well as the conviction that media should be democratic itself. The concept and social movement promoting it have grown as a response to the increased corporate domination of mass media and the perceived shrinking of the marketplace of ideas. The term also refers to a modern social movement evident in countries all over the world which attempts to make mainstream media more accountable to the public they serve and to create a democratic alternatives big text. The concept of a media democracy follows in response to their deregulation of broadcast markets and concentration of mass media ownership. In their book Manufacturing Consent, The Political Economy of Mass Media, authors Edward S. Hermann Noam Chomsky outline the propaganda model of media which states that the private interests in the control of media outlets will shape news and information before it is disseminated to the public through the use of 5 information filters. In this way, the construction of the mass media as a for-profit enterprise behaves in a way that runs counter to the democratic ideals of a free press. Media democracy advocates that corporate ownership and commercial pressures influence media content, sharply limiting the range of news, opinions, and entertainment citizens receive. Consequently, they call for a more equal distribution of economic, social, cultural, and information capital, which would lead to a more informed citizenry as well as a more enlightened representative political discourse. Now let's start the new topic. Media democracy advocates a media strengthening public service broadcasting, incorporating the use of alternative media into a larger discourse, increasing the role of citizen journalism, turning a passive audience into active participants, using the mass media to promote democratic ideals. The competitive structure of the mass media landscape stands in opposition to democratic ideals since the competition of the marketplace affects how stories are framed and transmitted to the public. This can hamper the ability of the democratic system to solve internal social problems as well as international conflicts in an optimal way. Media democracy, however, is grounded in creating a mass media system that favors a diversity of voices and opinions over ownership and consolidation in an effort to eliminate bias in coverage. This in turn leads to the informed public debate necessary for a democratic state. The ability to comprehend and scrutinize the connection between press and democracy is important because media has the power to tell a society's story and thereby influence thinking and beliefs and behavior. Cultural studies have investigated changes in the increasing tendency of modern mass media in the field of politics to blur and confuse the boundaries between journalists and advertising. The diverse range of information providers is necessary so that viewers, readers, and listeners receive a broad spectrum of information from varying sources that is not tightly controlled, biased, and filtered. Now let's understand the new topic, media freedom, an overview of world media. Access to different sources of information prevents deliberate attempts of misinformation and allows the public to make their own judgments and form their own opinions. This is critical as individuals must be in a position to decide and act autonomously for there to be a functioning democracy. The last several decades have seen an increased concentration of media ownership by large private entities. In the United States, these organizations are known as the Big Six. They include General Electric, Walt Disney Company, News Corporation, Time Warner, Viacom, and CBS Corporation. A similar approach has been taken in Canada, where most media outlets are owned by national conglomerates. This has led to the reduction in the number of voices and opinions communicated to the public, to an increase in the commercialization of news and information. A reduction in investigative reporting and emphasis on infotainment and profitability over informative public discourse. The concentration of media outlets has been encouraged by government deregulation and neoliberal trade policies. In US, the Telecommunication Act of 1996 removed most of the media ownership rules that were previously put in place. This led to a massive consolidation of the telecommunication industry. Over 4,000 radio stations were brought out, and minority ownership in TV stations dropped to its lowest point since 1990, when the federal government began tracking the data. Their aim is to spread awareness about the lack of diversity and the media landscape and direct the public to alternative media. Additionally, these groups press for political solutions to the FCC in US and the CRTC in Canada to oppose any further media consolidation. In the United States, the non-profit Media Access Project is a public interest law firm that advocates media democracy by protecting freedom of expression, promoting universal and equitable media to access to media outlets and telecommunication services, and encouraging vibrant public discourse on critical issues facing our society. The groups has raised numerous concerns with the neoliberalization of media in the United States in recent years, particularly with regards to media ownership, net neutrality laws, and access to the wireless spectrum. In Canada, Open Media is a similar group that promotes a media democracy by encouraging open communication systems through online campaigns, events, and workshops. In particular, the groups Stop the Meter campaign to petition against proposed usage-based billing was the largest online appeal in Canadian history. Though the model aims to democratize the opinions expressed within the mass media, as well as the ownership of media entities themselves, feminist media theory argues that the media cannot be considered truly inclusive and democratic insofar as they rely on a masculine concept of impartiality and objectivity. Creating a more inclusive and democratic media would require reconceptualizing how we define the news and its principles. That's all for today. Thank you, everyone.